Good evening. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the scheduled meetings of the Township Council, established and adopted by the Township Council, which schedule designated time and date and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting is provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. We're using electronic and applying important device in order to obtain a clear on the record. Request all those wishing to speak. You recognize and state your name and address directly to the microphone. The recording device to be solely utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for the preparation minutes shall be the official record of the Township Council meeting.
Mr. Mignon?
He is ill.
Mrs. Albright Troxel? Here. Mrs. Grace Love?
She is ill.
Mr. Nash?
Here.
Mrs. Walters? Here. Mrs. Winters? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Carlin?
Here.
Mr. Cardis?
Here.
Chief Harkins? Mr. McGill?
Here. We have a personnel legal matter to discuss in closed session, so I entertain a motion for resolution 2503-080. Motion, please. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Mignon, or, I'm sorry, Mrs. Albright Troxel?
Yes.
Mr. Nash?
Yes.
Mrs. Walters?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes, I anticipate up to 20 minutes in this discussion.
What's your name? Sure.
My dad had a little bit of phonograph. Now I hear this is 2006. Gloucester Township. We got three. This will be. State based on that. It's not generally for people. It seems like just get these. Just to look so tight that to be mindful. They switch church and then you go back to the state, church, anything. But
It's just a nice family member. It's a nice family.
that's but I look back
Excellent.
when things start to weary, like I said, I don't know how to do it, but it seems that energy comes from faults. And they just keep going. These strange things around them, you understand it. It doesn't even make sense. Church people believe
Hey. Hello there.
seats taken.
Yeah.
I can give you a mirror, and I know that everything's channels. I didn't know that, so you got extremely.
I know one.
Just got through golf practice. Good.
Black is a pencil.
This was just a drive race. It was at Indian Springs. Yeah.
No, I said you guys still.
Oh, yeah, it's around there. I see that. Yeah.
They actually have.
Yeah.
As an electrician, it's not. Kansas.
That's a picture.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's a memory.
She has. Oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, right. There's another tryout. Yeah, so Friday we'll have the coaches meeting. Monday we announce. Tuesday we'll get to. Yeah.
Like it's like,
Actually,
I'm like, right. It's like, I didn't sit at my desk. Right, so something is
Everybody try.
yeah.
Yeah, that's hard.
So we're at.
Oh, because of that, Uncle Dustin had asked.
No, that's what they're
What
like.
they said.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, hey, I was like,
Yeah,
yeah.
so, but kids that are like 1,000.
Like two people, I don't think for 2 weeks, two jobs.
Saying nothing. Yeah. So.
Yeah, so they're doing it again. It sounds like you like. So that's all.
Yeah.
I don't bring up. You got it. And then just.
Yeah.
Now, clerk, now, roll call here, please.
Mrs. Albright Troxel? Here. Mr. Nash?
Here.
Mrs. Walters? Here. Mrs. Winters? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Carlemere?
Here.
Mr. Curtis?
Here.
Chief Harkins?
Here.
Mr. McGill?
Here. We reviewed a personnel matter that's a legal implication student. Go back to resolve that. With our legal counsel. Now have our first public comment portion. This is for agenda items only. Anyone wishing to address council in this meeting at one time. If you're familiar with the rules of order, please limit your comments to 3 minutes for the first public comment portion. And this will be on agenda items only. At the end of the public portion, public comment period, council may respond to the question. Anyone like to speak on the first public Ms. Smith.
Hi, good evening, council. My name is Shaughnessy Smithman. I live in the SDK Millbrook Gardens Apartment Complex on Millbrook Court. It's written 1341 Blackwood Clementon Road, apartment 341, Clementon, New Jersey, 08021-5673. It's also written as 341, the apartment number, followed by Millbridge Road, even though it's located on Millbrook Court, Clementon, New Jersey, 08021-5563. My question is it says it's for you said for agenda items, the ordinance for the second reading, is that considered, can that be mentioned?
There will be a separate hearing. Ordinance 06 and 07,
That's correct,
there's a second reading.
but no comment can be made.
So there's a hearing that will take place during that, so you can bring a comment, you may have comment on that part.
All right, and once again, the refunding of taxes for overpayments.
Yes, what was your question?
The question is, when those payments are made, who are they made to? Are they made to the person that actually overpaid the taxes?
We'll respond at the end of the public portion.
So that would be for goal R2503-083. And also for R2503-085. Is who receives the overpayment? Is it possible for somebody else to receive those payments, either by mistaken identity, stolen identity, or just by the choosing of the municipality of Gloucester Township, New Jersey? Does it actually go to the person that made the overpayment of taxes?
Is there anyone else? Seeing none, Mr. Leader.
Dave Leader, Glendora. I still don't know what the difference is between ordinances and consent agenda. I'd like to speak to, I guess, an ordinance, second reading. Can I speak to that?
There's a hearing for that, sir.
I don't know what a hearing is, sir.
It is a public, you can comment on that particular ordinance. We dedicate time to that. There's no time limit to it, you can speak on
I see. So these are the two agenda items, 06 and 07,
it. Those are the two ordinances for a hearing.
and then the ones below it, ordinance first reading.
Their first reading introduction, where you can comment on that.
Okay.
There will be a hearing, and second reading.
I see, thank you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the first public comment. Ms. Smith, in regards to resolution 83 and 85, that is made to the individuals that are paid. So their names are indicated in the resolution for 83 and also for 84 and 85. So their information is provided there in the resolution. We'll now go to our ordinances. Second reading, there will be a public hearing. Ordinance 0-25-06, ordinance amending chapter 81-448 of the Code of the Township of Gloucester entitled Vehicles and Traffic of the Code of the Township of Gloucester. This is section 81-348 is designated as a handicap parking. It is amended where the location on 198 Breckenridge Drive will be indicated as a handicap parking location. Now open up to a public hearing. We'll close the public hearing. Now motion. On the question, roll call please.
So, Ray Troxel,
Yes.
Mr. Nash?
Yes.
Mrs. Walters? Yes. Mrs. Winters? Mr. Marquardt?
Yes. Next is ordinance 0-25-07. Ordinance amended ordinance 0-23-10 entitled Ordinance creating chapter 38 of the Code of the Township of Gloucester. Gloucester, entitled New Jersey Motion Picture and Television Commission, which will allow motion picture and television film in the Township of Gloucester, County, and State of New Jersey. On November 13th, 2023, the Township Council passed ordinance as part of the township application to participate in the film rating program. What this does is it updates and requires minor technical amendments to conform to the commission's revised regulations for that program. Those deal with permits, issuance of permits, interference with public activity, appeals, copies of permits, reimbursement of certain costs, fees, violations, and penalties. Now open up this for a public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on this matter? Ms. Smith? No. Well, five.
Good evening, council. My name is Shaughnessy Smithman. I live in the SDK, Millbrook Gardens Apartment Complex on Millbrook Court, Department 341. For ordinance 02507, I didn't mention anything about the rights of the people that are being filmed. It mentioned that they had to make it arrangements for noise reduction and increase in price that the county or area that they're filming in might incur, like parking meters and such. They would need to make payment for that, but it didn't mention any of the rights of the people in the film. The people that are actually being filmed, are they just subject to typical rights of people being recorded? I only ask because with my stolen identity, I really wouldn't know if I was ever recorded or ever paid. All that I know is that I hear a lot of to the local Gloucester Township, New Jersey Police Department to prove identity theft. city I lived in, I think I lived there for eight years. They have more of my identity than I do. So is there anything written in your ordinance amending 02310 for today's ordinance of 02507 to allow for protection for the people actually being filmed?
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Ms. Coyne?
Denise Coyne. I understand that this is an existing ordinance, but it's being amended, so I want to make sure that there's no confusion about how this ordinance can impact everyday residents and community activists who want to document and film on public property. My main concern is that we need clear assurance that this ordinance will not interfere with our First Amendment rights. Specifically, I'd like to hear the council publicly verify that this ordinance will not restrict citizens' rights to film in public spaces, whether it's for documenting local government meetings, sharing information, or raising awareness about important issues in our town. I believe the ordinance is meant to focus on large commercial productions, but it's important to make sure that it doesn't unintentionally impose on the ability of residents and activists to exercise their rights to film for transparency and civic engagement. I'm asking the council to please confirm that this ordinance won't affect our rights to film in and on public property for these important purposes. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Zach?
Hi everyone, Nancy Bell, Blackwood, Hilltop Center, Blackwood. I'm sure there's a good reason for introducing an ordinance around filming on public property. I appreciate it, and it aims to regulate filming for commercial and educational purposes while exempting news stories. On the surface, it seems reasonable. However, the ordinance does not define what qualifies as news. It's vague and open to interpretation. Knowing people who film often consistently, disseminating matters of public interest, I'm worried how this ambiguity could affect these people. While the council may intend the news exemption to protect journalistic activity, this lacks clarity and creates a problem. In the past, local officials have made comments that citizen journalism does not count as news sources, as it's not being affiliated with a traditional outlet. If that same logic applies to here, residents' personal efforts to inform the public well below any commercial scale may be labeled educational instead of news. That would subject those citizen journalists to fees, permits, applications, and prior approval. I see this as prior restraint under my First Amendment rights, which is free press and expression. The Supreme Court has protected the right to gather, share information under the First Amendment. Nearby Minnesota, which rejects prior restraint, as well as New York Times, the U.S. in 71, upheld press freedom to inform the public. These rulings support residents' work as independent journalists. Your job is to write an ordinance, but once it's in law, others, such as police, administrators, or even a judge, will decide how the news is interpreted. I'm sure your true intent is not to hinder the independent journalists or residents documenting personal concerns, like council meetings, community interests, and other matters. The ordinance should be specific and should not explicitly define news to include hobbyist or independent efforts, not just established media. I urge you to amend to clarify that news encompasses independent journalism and public interest filming by residents to ensure it's exempt from fees and permits. A precise definition could prevent misinterpretation that restricts our civic rights under the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Ms. Leader?
Dave Leader, Glendora. I also have notes, who defines news? So in the event that we get to the point where we're doing violations and penalties, law enforcement could define news, the judge could define news, attorney generals could define news. You need to define news to not include the public taking photographs and videos in publicly accessible places. Uh, 38.2, item B, instead of a dollar sign, has a symbol that I don't know how to pronounce. So it's $10 herein, I assume. Unless that symbol is another currency I'm not aware of. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we'll go to the hearing. This ordinance, as I indicated, was passed in November 13, 2023, and allowed us to participate on New Jersey Motion Picture Television Filming Commission as part of their film rating initiative. The comments made by Ms. Coyne restricting the rights of individuals or citizen journalists. This is scaled for a large commercial production. I don't interpret this, and if anyone on council wants to step in on Mr. Carter, that this is hindering anyone in providing educational video safety anything or work. Okay. In addition to Ms. Kelly added about lacking clarity or comments about citizens journalists. Again, how I interpret it is that this is for large scale film that adheres to a film rating program and provides adheres to their standards, and that's why this is being updated. It's not to penalize anybody who goes around with a camera, and use anybody who will support and educate the public about those matters. I skipped over Ms. Smith regarding if this has, this is a concern you brought back in the November 2023 meeting, this first passed, is it does it have any information in there about if people are reported bystanders, does it have it where they are informed that they're being reported? It does not have that language in there. In our first, when we first passed it in November of 23, and this one does not have that language in there. Mr. Leader, with that symbol, what would you call that symbol?
It's the section?
No.
So, I'm not sure what he's referring to.
Okay, so let's go on the first page of the ordinance and go down here. Okay, Article 1. That's some legal stuff that you guys do. Sorry.
Article 1, section 38.1.
That one right there.
That's my education and knowledge, that's just a symbol indicating a section. It's section 38.2, section 38.1. It's probably a phrase for it.
Sorry, it's complicated things. Okay, all right, so that's just indicating a section. With that, I entertain a motion. Is there a second? On the question, roll call, please.
Mrs. Albright Droxel?
Yes.
Mr. Nash?
Yes.
Mrs. Walters?
Yes.
Mrs. Winter?
Yes.
Mr. Ricardo?
Yes. Before we go to the next ordinance, first, I forgot to waive the reading and accept the minutes of the regular meeting, February 10th, 2025, and February 24th, 2025. Have a motion, please. For a second? Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mrs. Albright Droxel?
Yes.
Mr. Nash?
Yes, on February 10th, and abstaining on February 24th.
Mrs. Walters?
Yes.
Mrs. Winter?
Yes.
Mr. Ricardo?
Yes. Ordinance 0-25-08 is a first reading and introduction. There will be a hearing at the second reading. Ordinance of the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, State of New Jersey, adopting amendments to the Blackwood West redevelopment plan as adopted under ordinance number 0-21-12 in accordance with NJSA 48-12A-1 et sec, local redevelopment and housing law. This ordinance will amend section 1411.b of the Arts District North Redevelopment District of the Blackwood redevelopment area to permit the use of tattoo body piercing for retail, sales, and services at 12 North Black Horse Pike, Block 10606, Lot 9, and 10 North Black Horse Pike, Block 10606, Lot 10. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mrs. Albright Troxel,
Yes.
Mr. Nash.
Yes.
Mrs. Walters.
Yes.
Mrs. Winters.
Yes.
Mr. McCotton.
Yes. Next is ordinance 0-25-09. Ordinance amending chapter 74 of the Township of Gloucester entitled Stormwater Management of the Code of the Township of Gloucester. The NJDEP has updated the stormwater control ordinance for municipalities and changes have occurred to the stormwater regulations. What this does is it requires municipalities with a Tier A stormwater permit to adopt and enforce stormwater regulations in compliance with NJAC 78. This is a first reading and introduction. There will be a hearing at its second reading. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? On the question, roll call, please.
Mrs. Albright Troxel,
Yes.
Mr. Nash.
Yes.
Mrs. Walters.
Yes.
Mrs. Winters. Mr. McCotton.
Yes. Next is ordinance 0-25-10. Ordinance amending chapter 74 of the Township of Gloucester entitled Privately Owned Salt Storage of the Code of the Township of Gloucester. This is the State of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection requires municipalities with Tier A stormwater permits to adopt and enforce a community-wide ordinance to control privately owned salt storage as established to reduce its pollutant runoff and protect environmental, public health, safety, and welfare. This is a new ordinance. May I have a motion, please?
Make that motion.
Is there a second? On the question, roll call, please.
Mrs. Albright Troxel,
Yes.
Mr. Nash.
Yes.
Mrs. Walters.
Yes.
Mrs. Winters. Mr. McCotton.
Yes. Before, next is our consent agenda. Before I ask any council member to like to have anyone removed, I would like to have resolution 2503-089 removed from the consent agenda. There needs to be some additional work on that particular resolution. Does anyone else want to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? All right, may I have a motion to remove resolution 2503-089 from the consent agenda?
I'll second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mrs. Albright Troxel, Mr. Nash.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Walters.
Yes.
Mrs. Winters. Mr. McCotton.
Yes, to remove. Now I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended. On the question, roll call, please.
Mrs. Albright Troxel.
Yes.
Mr. Nash.
Yes.
Mrs. Walters.
Yes.
Mrs. Winters. Mr. McCotton.
Yes. We have 2 GTE Gov access emails. Bear with me. Oh, never mind. Okay. The first one's from Steve Bogan, Gloucester Township, Pine Hill Rotary, 1030 Marymount Avenue, Blackwood, New Jersey. On Saturday, April 5th, the Rotary Club of Gloucester Township, Pine Hill, will be partnering with the Gloucester Township Historic and Scenic Society. We're reaching out for volunteers from our community to assist us with this project in recognition of Earth Day. We will be working at the site from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Volunteers should bring their own equipment and dress in the expectation of getting dirty. For additional questions or to RSVP, please email Steve Bogan at Gloucester Township Rotary @gmail.com or visit our website, www.gtrotary.org. Thank you, Mr. Bogan, for that public service announcement. Our next email is from Terry Fretz at 85 Cherry Circle in Blackwood regarding agenda item resolution 2503-089, shared services agreement. The resolution mentions sharing materials, services, personnel. Does that mean that only personnel from the school districts and the township are permitted to perform these services? Are outside contractors allowed to perform shared services under this agreement? So to be clear, this shared service agreement, no employee from a private company that holds a contract with Gloucester Township will perform any shared service for either school district. This program received this question. I'm going to start, and if you want to jump in, if either party is unable to perform the service or services, they can request a bid from a private contractor. The goal of this is to have a shared service agreement to save taxpayers money. This was pulled because we need some additional information on it. Mr. Cars, do you want to add to that?
No, what you said is exactly what I would have said.
Well, the term in there of the form that we initially appeared to review, when it's talked about personnel, it's talking about township personnel. It's not talking about a private contractor being shared with the school. It's our private people, it's our personal, public.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman, Mr. Cars. We'll now go to our second public comment. This will be any item that the public chooses to address. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes for the second public comment. Once you complete your comments or question for the public comment period, council president, council members may address your comments or questions. There's 30 minutes for the second public portion. Anyone wish to speak? Mr. Byrne. Followed by Mr. Weaver. Ms. Smith, did you have your hand up?
Good evening, Council. Brian Burns, Salwood Drive in Ariel.
Good evening.
And regrettably, I was not here at the last meeting to speak about a particular resolution that I'll get to in a second. I'm sure you're not surprised. I'm curious about the acquisition of the Murray property and where that stands presently. Since we don't have a dialogue back and forth, that's question number one. My other questions are related to ordinance R2502-073 regarding 4 large, called the commercial buildings. Kickstone provides the supporting information on this resolution. Like I said, I regret not being here. I dropped the ball. I should have looked at the agenda. I'm assuming that this resolution was passed. And it's testing a bit because there's a lot of conflicting information about these blocks and lots. And I wanted to bring to your attention on the 3rd page, the letter from U.S. Fish and Wildlife that I shared with council last year, specifically identifying these same blocks as a natural heritage site by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So here we are supporting the construction of 4 large commercial buildings, 10,000 square feet apiece. And yet the mayor and council is aware that these blocks are a natural heritage site and are sensitive to environmental areas. In addition to that, on page 59, on the next page, this is the recommendation from the 2024 Master Plan Examination Report. And it also says that those blocks should become a redevelopment zone. And in part, it reads the existing zoning and surrounding zoning districts, which are residential in nature, further warrants the exploration for a redevelopment plan that would support a more appropriate zone with uses more compatible with residential zoning abutting the area. So this is from the master plan examination. This is the council's own information. you want to call them warehouses, you want to call them distribution buildings, I don't know if it's just called commercial buildings in the resolution. So we have two strikes against this. One is the natural heritage site. The second strike is in the master plan, it says this area should be rezoned for something more appropriate. Furthermore, in the examination report, I circled for you guys a number of quotes on page 7 in terms of what the re-examination and township government should be doing. Page 7, the protection of the natural environment will continue to be a strong social goal for citizens. Preserving environmentally sensitive land from developmentally sensitive land and scenic landscapes, especially along stream corridors, which this is. There's a stream that originates back there. It's called Tom's Branch. Below that, restrict development on environmentally sensitive land to recreation and conservation purposes. So here we are, again, approving something or showing support for something which is in direct conflict to the re-examination plan. It's a natural heritage site. And even the re-examination plan itself says that those blocks and lots should be rezoned. So I don't know why council is supporting this. So my questions for this evening are listed on the second page. Why would council support building 4 10,000 square foot commercial buildings when the property is a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Natural Heritage Site? 2, why would council support the use of the land when the master plan re-examination reports recommends the rezoning of these parcels to better support the needs of the community? Page 59. Number 3, why would council support the construction of these buildings when the re-examination report 2024 clearly states that environmentally sensitive land, especially along stream corridors, should be protected? And those pages are 7, 8, 11, and 12. What is the intended use of these proposed buildings? And 5, which probably nobody knows, what is the percent of land in question that would be covered by impermeable surfaces such as roofs, parking lots, and storage areas?
Mr. Burns, thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else? Oh, sir, Mr. Leader.
Big Leader Glendora. I was looking at one of the items, resolution 2503-87, and it talked about a green team. I never heard of the green team. I'd like to know if the public can join the green team. The new format is working this year of the public speaking without getting any feedback and being unable to feedback is just not working. 3 examples. One example is a question was put in the first sentence followed by discussion, and it was stated that there was no question. It was a statement. The question was in the very beginning of that public speech. In addition, we need more feedback. After council speaks their feedback, there's no to and fro. So in some cases, everybody goes home confused, including council. Council ask themselves questions about something the public brought up and left without polling to get an answer from the public. So council did not understand the question posed and just moved on. That's unacceptable. Public has a right to speak, be heard, and have questions answered, not just say it's a statement or that council doesn't understand the question. Therefore, it's moot. It is not moot. The public asked a question. Council didn't understand it. They left, they closed the session, they went home. Only the people who asked the question were concerned, I assume. The third thing around the new format is that the rules can be bent by council. There was a to and fro twice with the public, interactive. So the public statement, council asked public a question, went back, forth, back, forth. It was not reserved to the end of the meeting. So if council can reserve the right to modify at their will, when an issue comes up where something is said as a statement when the question was ignored, or when something comes up and says that council needs more detail, that is a clear opportunity for to and fro, for speaking back and forth. If the public who asked that question raises their voice and say, I can answer your question, I can give you more detail, we are told that we're out of order. If the public says, wait a minute, I have a response to your misunderstanding of the question, we're out of order. Nobody tells council they're out of order when council goes to and fro with the public, question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. It's not equitable, it stinks, it inhibits the public from having a dialogue with their elected officials. It's just wrong. Thank you.
Ms. Smith.
Good evening, council. My name is Shauna C. Smithman. I live in the SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex on Millbrook Court. It runs parallel with and adjacent to Kelly Driver Road, identified as Kelly Driver Lane, New Jersey Transit Bus Schedule. The closest large intersection would be Mill Gate. There is a strange Mill Haven road that goes off to the side, but it runs parallel the same way as Kelly Driver Road. Something positive. My father grew up in this town. It's not easy to walk, while him and his brothers, I think, had a car most of the time. It was mentioned that you have to drive. You need a vehicle to have work. I'm not permitted to work. I'm trying to change that. It's very difficult. I've always driven. I have not driven in the past 10 years, at least. Well, 2014. One time I drove my son's Honda to the shop. And then Bill Feeney, the neighbor I grew up with, said that somebody sent him a citation for a suspended license. And strangely, my license was suspended. How did he know that? It's like they sent somebody else a notice for something that I had incurred for not returning the plates in. My dad's due in prison. I took over. You have an arts theater. Forgive me, I know that there's not supposed to be back and forth talk, but what is that one theater on County Route 168? What is the name of that? Anybody know? You have an arts theater? No, there's a name of the theater. You're not going to answer the question. Is that what it's called? All right, it's located on Route 168 in Church Road. So that turns into County Route 534. And it's also known as the Black Horse Pike. So it's County Route 30, which is also commonly referred to as the White Horse Pike. There is no busing that goes in between those two pikes. There's no business really on County Route 534 to speak of. The ones that are there appear to be struggling. Maybe you could start on weekends and go further than that. But the township might want to consider purchasing a trolley and maybe getting retired CDL license professionals and maybe some high school or college students attending the local community college that might want to have interest in obtaining a CDL. for extra work. You get a pike-to-pike trolley. You could go from one pike to the other. You could loop around your theater. That'll get people from the Liverpool high-speed line to your theater. If you turn left onto, I think it's New Jersey Ave, you could go right around your theater and then go back on to Church Street, which turns into County Route 534. You can take Gibbsboro to Route 30, and then turn onto what is that, White Horse Ave. It'll loop around. You can keep all the turns pleasant. You won't interfere with traffic so much, but it might help your theater. Second, my identity is still under extreme distress. Turns out, I firmly believe that my family is heavily involved. I have two siblings, Kimberly Foley and Courtney Mesenfeld. For certain, Kimberly Foley has always in some way or another pretended to be me. When I was put into crisis in Florida, it's called the Baker Act. The items that she had in mind, she said that they were hers. I said, those are mine. I said, no, they're mine. No, they're not. I bought those. It makes me question things like her microwave or the kitchen table that I purchased for her. She's always been that way. She's 8.5 years older than me. There's nothing I can do. If I could go out of it, and that the state of New Jersey and the United States federal government would offer some type of protection for civil rights. Apparently it does not, especially in Gloucester Township, New Jersey. I don't have any credit cards. I only have a debit card from my bank. I don't have an Amazon or any other type of delivery account at all. I have not driven since the year 2014, my father's Geo Prism. It was registered in my name. It was given to Richard Smithman, my uncle Rich, that's my dad's brother. He wanted the vehicle. It would be extremely easy for Gloucester Township, New Jersey to investigate these things. I've never been married. I don't have a passport.
Ms. Smithman, thank you for your time. Ms. Klein, followed by Ms. Kelly.
Try.
Denise Coyne, Shoes Lady. Just, good evening, just so you know, people at home are saying they can't hear, sounds garbled. So that nobody can hear anything that's going on. I would like to address the irony of the council president's recent statement, I believe in transparency. At the February 10th, 2025 council meeting, Mr. Leader's concerns were met with personal criticism and were publicly questioned by Mr. Mercado, who suggested they were incorrect and inaccurate. However, Mr. Leader was not given the opportunity to respond. At the February 24th meeting, a statement was made about me, yet I was not permitted to address it. If residents who ask questions are treated this way, it raises concerns about whether public participation is being discouraged. This certainly does not foster the pleasant conversations that Mr. Mercado seems to value. Conversation should be a two-way exchange, allowing for engagement, clarification, and exchange of ideas. Meanwhile, important issues regarding the management of taxpayer dollars remain unaddressed. In December, the council approved $585,000 for a sewer project, then approved another $1 million in February for what appears to be the same project. No explanation has been provided as to why additional borrowing was necessary. An email I received states that the $585,000 bond ordinance was to replace an MUA bond ordinance that became invalid when the MUA was dissolved. On December 9th and December 23rd, we were told that $300,000 of the $585,000 was intended to connect a neighborhood to the sewer. At the last meeting, however, we were told this was not the case. In September 2024, Mr. Mercado stated that borrowing would increase sewer rates. However, on February 24, 2025, we were told there is no discussion of raising sewer rates, despite borrowing $1,885,000 in less than a year. Additionally, Mr. Carter stated that borrowing would result in higher taxes. These conflicting statements warrant clarification. When I asked whether borrowing more for the sewer would result in higher taxes or sewer rates increasing, I received a vague response about the budget process rather than a clear answer. These are valid taxpayer concerns. However, rather than fostering a respectful and transparent discussion, there seems to be a reluctance to acknowledge or address discrepancies in statements made by council members. Additionally, the restructuring of the council meetings to limit back and forth discussions between residents and the council has been described as leading to pleasant discussions. While that may be one perspective, it's not mine. I believe it has further restricted the public's ability to ensure transparency and to hold our representatives accountable. So, Mr. Mercado, when you say, I believe in transparency, what exactly do you mean? Do you mean transparency in borrowing? If so, why has the council not explained why we borrowed twice for what appears to be the same project? If this isn't the case, why has no one from council or the administration addressed the discrepancies? Do you mean transparency in decision-making? Statements regarding the sewer have shifted over time. First, we were told dissolving it would save money and preserve the sewer in the town, and then we needed to sell it. Residents deserve clear and consistent explanations. Also, how much did the bridge at the pickleball courts cost? Do you mean transparency in how residents are treated? Restricting responses to public statements and limiting discussion for the sake of pleasant discussions doesn't align with the principles of good government. By the way, I'm still waiting for a response to my email from November 26, 2024. If you truly believe in transparency, please demonstrate it through actions and not just words. Taxpayer money deserves respect, accountability, and clear communication. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly,
I'm good.
you're good? Anyone else wish to speak? Only speak one time. We close the second public portion. Ms. Corbin, I had handed Mr. Nash, right, Ms. Corbin, can you shed some light on the information that Mr. Burns had provided?
Yes, so this, project has not been
Is it
approved.
possible? to come
Oh,
up
yes.
to the microphone? I'm sorry. So I wasn't passing notes, folks, I was telling Mr. Nash to provide that to Ms. Corbin.
Thank you, Council President. So this project, from my understanding, is a contractor's yard. So there'll be, I believe, 4 10-square-foot buildings on several lots. However, this has not been approved by the planning board. We only came for a concept meeting with the planning board to discuss any site issues. And that was several months ago. I don't believe the resolution that was passed last council was the approval of that site, of that project. So as to the master plan goals and objectives that Mr. Burns mentioned, those are correct. Those are the goals and objectives that the master plan intends to have. And those are something that the planning board will need to consider when this application comes forward for a site plan review.
Ms. Corbin, is it possible to have Mr. Burns contact you if you have any additional questions?
Sure, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Leader had a question asking regarding the Green Team. The Green Team was established in 2010 to deal with issues of sustainability here in our community, recycling, environmental issues. Also, they were part of the drive to create the garden plots over at Hayward Davis Tavern. Those plots that residents can tend to for their own garden needs over there. This resolution today was to continue that and continue to receive their certification. Your comments regarding the format, and comments about rules can be met. There are times I've asked for clarification when people have come up here. So thank you for your comments on that. Ms. Smith, thank you for your comments. Ms. Coyne, in your statement and your questioning, so that $300,000, let's go back to that. Mr. Carson and I spoke after the meeting or the following day. So that statement that was made, when that was approved, that $300,000 was dedicated to that new road. The vendor came back to us, the engineer on that particular project, and that figure had gone up substantially. Is that correct, Mr. Carson?
That is correct.
That was the purpose of having that second ordinance for that project.
That is also correct.
Is there anything else you want to add to that?
No.
In regards to your questions regarding transparency and the dissolution of the reg, yes, I was pretty clear with that as far as dissolving it. The intent at the time was to have it moved to the township as a sewer utility. The following year, when Mr. Cars came to me after the November election, so November 23, came to me and said, there's an opportunity to see what the value of our sewer utility is. Let's see if there's a value to it. So at that time, that's how we proceeded. The residents spoke, and it still remains a sewer utility. Board of Directors.
Mr. Parliament,
Nothing to report.
Mr. Artis,
Nothing at this time.
Chief Harkins,
Nothing to report.
Mr. McGill, Mrs. Albright Troxel,
Just thank you for coming this evening.
Mr. Nash,
One clarification on the ego from Steve Bogan. He mentions meeting at a site. He doesn't say exactly which site that is.
Table Davies.
It is there?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I assumed that, I just want to make it clarified. And then, with regards to Mr. Burns, mentioned about the 2502073. This is a Form A application. Can you explain to us a little bit what a Form A application is? Because I know it mentions sewer. What exactly the Form
That's
A?
for connections to, that connection for the particular building.
So that's all that was approved, correct? Okay. That's all.
Mrs. Walters,
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Mrs. Winters,
Thank you everyone for coming out. Have a great night.
Mr. Mercado.
Thank you for coming out this evening. Next meeting, we will celebrate Women's History Month for Women Who Make a Difference. So we will have that event 7 o'clock hour, and then lead into a regular council meeting. So I encourage everybody to attend, if you're able to attend. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor? Have a great evening, everyone.
You were so good at not answering questions. So good. Must be a skill.
No, that's not.
I just usually don't have any idea. And his car keys were left out front here, I don't know if anybody.
The state clearly articulated questions went unanswered.
I don't know when you get out there. Natural heritage site.
Makes me wonder why.
You did come before.